Welcome to the Data Hall YouTube channel. In our previous video, we discussed the theoretical aspect of event study and demonstrated the basic idea in Excel. And now what we are going to use is we are going to use Stata to conduct event study. So in this specific video, we are going to use estudy command, and in next video we are going to use event study 2 command to demonstrate the idea. So estudy command is basic. It can do many things, but there are certain limitations with estudy, but it is easy to understand. Event study 2 command, which we are going to do in next video, is somewhat difficult to understand, but it is more of a complete command related to event study. So we have made a data set that you can download from the link given in description. Use estudy data. So this is the data set that I have made for you using different stock returns. So we have stock returns, we have the date, Apple, General Electric, GM, Microsoft, Ford, IBM, etc. So we have different stocks over here, and then we have the market return, which is S&P 500. We have SMB and HML. Ignore this one for a minute, and we would come back to that later on. So we have different factors depending on which model we are going to use. And remember, we discussed different models in for the expected return, to estimate the expected return, estimation models. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to use estudy command, and if you do not have already installed it, use ssc install estudy, and that would install it. So we start with the data, right? In all our videos we use long data, and if you are familiar with long data is when one stock is stacked on another stock. So if we have the stock return of Apple and it ends over here, so we would have the General Electric stock returns over here, and we would have one variable that would be called symbol, as we had in our previous video in the Excel. So that was a long format, but the estudy command demands that we have the data in wide format. So we have all the stocks in so each column would have its own stock, right? So we have converted the data already in the wide format. So first thing is you need to convert your data into the wide format. Then we need to start with the estudy command. So we write estudy, then we write the name of the stocks on which we are going to perform the event studies. So although we have multiple stocks, but we're just interested in these stocks. We write the option date var, and this date var would contain the name of the time variable that we have. So in this case we have a date variable that contains the dates in our data set. Let me just show it to you. So this is the date variable, and then we have EV date, which stands for event date, and we need to tell Stata that what is going to be the event date. So in our example we are going to say 1st of July 2011 is the date on which Apple and, let's just say, both of them announced stock split on the same date. So Apple and General Electric announced the stock split on 1st of July 2011. So that would be EV date option. Then we need to specify the date format for our EV date variable. So this EV date variable have first we have the day, then we have the month, and then we have the year. So this is just the format in which we have specified the event date. If we had specified it in any other format, let's just say if it was like this 2011, so that would be year 0701. Then instead of writing DMY, we would write YMD, right? If that makes sense. Okay, so I would remove that. So the date format is related to EV date. Then we need to have an event window. Remember how we discussed that we have event window and estimation window. So we would have event window, and our event window starts with 0. So this is the lower bound 1. So we can have multiple event windows. Remember, in this estudy allows us to have 6 different event windows in a single command. So this LB1 and UB1 is one event window, which would be of 0 and 3 days, starting from the date of the event, ending 3 days till the from the event, right? So then we have estimation window. See how we discussed how do we estimate the expected return. So we have the lower bound of estimation window, which is minus 120, and upper bound of estimation window, which is 10. So we need to start 10 days before the event and till 120 days before the event, and during this time period we would calculate the expected return. Lastly, we need to specify the index list, which we would discuss further in detail, but what we are saying is that we are going to use, let's say, market model, and what a market model would do is regress the stock return on the market return, and then based on this it would calculate the expected return. So we need to specify the must specify things are date var, then event date, then the date format. It can either be DMY, MDY or YMD. Any other format aren't allowed. Then we need to have event window, which can be multiple event window, LB1, so LB2, UB2, this would be the second window, etc. And then we have index list. Okay, so let me just give you the idea. It would take a while to run, and what it tells us that our event date was 1st of July 2011 with one event window, because we already specified LB1 and UB1. And then we have CAAR, right? So this is the Apple stock returns CAAR, which is 3.98%. So what it is saying is that due to this stock split, on average the stock return of Apple had increased by 3.94%, and it is statistically significant. So we are confident enough that it is different from 0. Then it gives us the CAR for General Electric stock return. So due to this stock split, it do have a negative impact on stock, but again it is not statistically significant. And then PTF is BHAR, buy and hold return, but that we won't discuss in this video. Then we have CAAR, which is cumulative average abnormal return. That is the average of these two. Okay, so this is the average of these two CARs. Okay, so these are the results that we would get with this command. So pretty much easy to use as compared to Excel. There are certain things that I'm going to discuss in detail. First thing is that sometimes we do get an error, and let me just distort the sorting of this data. Currently it is sorted on the basis of date, and if I distort it, so if I sort it on Apple, that means that the date are at least distorted. And if I'm going to execute this same command that I already did above, it would give me an error because it is saying that the specified event window is before the sample period. So you see, I had struggled with this specific error because sometimes the error can be more specific, and we get the idea, but with this error I wasn't able to get the idea of what it is saying. So I thought I would share that with you. What it is simply saying is that your data is not sorted on the date variable. So we need to sort that on the date variable, and then if again we execute it, it would work perfectly fine. Okay, let's discuss this command in detail. It is going to be a long video. So we have portfolio and groups. So what we can do is we can make portfolios and check the cumulative abnormal return of that specific portfolio, right? So what we do is we close these portfolios within parentheses. So first portfolio won't be in parentheses, but all the other portfolios would be in parentheses. So it is not necessary that you cannot repeat these stocks. You can have these stocks repeated. So this Apple is in the first portfolio and as well as in the third portfolio. Similar goes for the GM in the second and the third. Rest of the command remains the same, and I'm just going to show you that what happens with it. So it gives us the same old results, we know that, but for this one, this CAAR is the average of the specific portfolios. Other than that, these would be obviously specific CAARs of that specific stock, so it wouldn't matter whether we have it in portfolio or not. But what would change is these two values. So this CAAR. So now instead of having the CAAR of all these cumulative average abnormal return, CAAR of all these stocks, what we have done is we have got the CAAR of these two, then these four, and then these three stocks. So that's how we can use portfolio groups. We can also do multiple event window, and that I have already demonstrated. We can use up to 6 event windows. So that would be LB1, UB1, this would be the first window, this would be the second event window, this would become the third event window, right? So the second event window starts 2 days before the event and ends on the date of the event. Window 3 starts 1 day after the event, so this is the post estimation window, and ends 5 days after the event. The rest of the command remains the same. So we get a different window CAAR. Those would obviously be in columns. This is 0-3 days, -2 day, and post estimation window, post event window. We can also change estimation window. It can be a forward looking or backward looking, but obviously most of the time we would have backward looking estimation window. And the important thing is estimation model. Remember in our lecture we discussed there are different models that we can use to calculate expected return, and there we had market adjusted model, we had CAPM, then we have mean adjusted model, and we had market model, farm and French model. So these are different models that we can use to calculate expected return. And hence most of these studies, what they would do is they would calculate expected return and hence CAAR based on different models. So there are two things that would change if we change the model. We want to play with the model. One is the model type, which is mod type, and the second option is index list, right? By default, we do not need to use mod type. But because the default mod type is sim, and so let's come to the model type. So we have first model type is the single index model, which stands for sim, and what we can do is in single index model we can use only one variable in index list. Let me go back to the PowerPoint slides that I've discussed in the last class. So we discussed market model and we discussed CAPM model. Both these model have a single independent factor. So these are called single index models. So single index model simply means that we only have one independent variable in our model. So we keep the same values. The only thing that we are going to change is these two values. So index list, this would contain the independent variable. Remember how in our all the commands we are using index as MKT, which is the S&P 500 index market. So essentially we were using market model, and the model type is sim. So remember, if whether we write model type sim or not, single index model or not, that is just the default, so it would execute in a similar manner. So these two commands are same, except in the second command I have deleted the model type sim just to demonstrate that this mod type sim is the default setting. So it doesn't matter whether you write mod type sim or not, but for other type of model you would have to specify. So this is single index model. If our single index model had let's just say CAPM or any other thing, any other independent variable, then we would mention that over here in the index list. So index list would contain the list of the independent variables, and the model type would tell estudy what type of the model we are going to use. Then we have market adjusted model, and what market adjusted model is, again, for model type we are going to use MAM, which stands for market adjusted model. And let me show this from the slides. So remember, how market adjusted model was that we take not the average return, but just the return of the market to represent the expected return. So return of the market on that time period would be the market adjusted return model. So if we are going to calculate expected return based on market adjusted model, we would have to specify mod type MAM. So this is must to specify. If we do not specify this, then it is going to use the default setting, which is sim. This is not what we want. We do not want it to regress the Apple stock on market stock, which is what sim would do. We just want to take the specific value from the market model. And so we specify index list, the market variable, and then the model type as MAM. So this is how the results would look like. It would obviously be different from the previous models. Then we have a multiple factor model, and the only difference is that we can have now multiple independent variables in our index list. Remember, we discussed Pharma and French model, which have three factors, which is market factor, size factor, and the value factor. So with mod type, we would set MFM, which stands for multiple factor model, and index list we would have multiple variables. Right, so these are the results. Then we can have HMM, which stands for historical mean model, and this is the first model that we discussed in slides. And this is what HMM is, historical mean model, where we take the average stock return in the estimation window as the expected return. Okay, so if we are going to use HMM, we do not need to specify index list. That's for sure, because we are not going to use independent variables. We just have the stock returns, and we are going to take the average of stock return for this estimation window, right? Then we have our diagnostic test, and it is using by default the t-test, which is a parametric test. We can use other tests as well. So we need to specify a diagnostic option, and within that option we can have different types of option. And what test do you want to apply? Let me show it to you from the help menu. We have different types of diagnostic tests that can be applied. These are the tests that can be applied. So I'm just going to use Wilcoxon, but you have these others as well. This norm is the normal distribution model, the t-test that we are using by default. So this is the default option basically. So whether you specify diagnostic as norm or not, that is same thing. But unfortunately you can have only one type of diagnostic test. So each time, if you need different tests, then each time you would have to run the command by changing this test. So one test at a time. We can also limit the decimal points. See how we are getting 2 decimal points, but if we need to increase the decimal points, we would use the decimal and whatever number of digits that we want after the decimal point. So we had 4. Okay, so with the price option, if we have not calculated stock returns and we just have the prices, then we can use price option at the end of the command, right? Just the option. We don't need to have parenthesis for that. Just we would write price, right? And what this would tell estudy is that both the firms and the indexes that we have are not returns but just prices. So it would have to calculate the return, and then it would perform the analysis. But it's better idea to have returns rather than it to have calculated returns, right? Then we have show p, which would show p values. So we write show pv, right? And it would give us the p value with each analysis. We can also have no stars, right? No star option. That would just remove these stars. Okay, so we can also store these results in Excel or .dta format, right? And the way is to use output Excel results, and if I execute this, it would save the data in Excel. Let me show it to you, but before that, let me also save it in data format, Stata data format. For that, I would use different option, which is my dataset, and I would give the name of the file, and it would save it in the working directory. So let me show this file to you. So these are the two files that are generated. So the same results, but now we have them in Excel because okay. We have p values in different sheets, then we have standard error and t-test value in different sheets. So what you can do is develop an Excel sheet that would combine, that would take all these values and make it into a table, or you can do that manually. And we also have these results in Stata format, and this is how it looks like, but it would just show us the CAAR values. Okay, let's get back to the do file. We can also suppress groups, right? So what it means is that we have these individual CARs, and then we have group CARs, right? So it can either suppress these individual CARs or these group CARs, and that is not something that's much useful in the output window, but obviously if you are going to take it into Excel, output it into Excel, then it becomes useful, right? You have clean results. So we suppress the IND means individuals, so it would just show us the group results, and if we suppress group, then it would suppress the group and just show us the individual results. We can also have graph of these right, abnormal returns. So we use the graph option and give it a time period that would show us the graph for. So we have got 4 graphs. One is for the Apple stock return. This is the day of the event and how the CAR is before and during the day of the event. Then we have the expected returns for GE, then for the buy and hold return for this group, and then we have CAAR, right? Then we can use different dates for each stock. Remember how we are using this event date, right? And what it is, we are assuming that each stock had that event on this specific date, which is not normally what is going to happen. That depends. If that is from specific event, it would have its own date. So we want to have a way to use those dates, and this is where these two variables would come in. We have stock name and event date. So we have given a stock name, right? These are the stocks, and then on which date that event had happened for that specific stock, right? So for that we would specify EV date, which is the option that we had been using all the way. But now we will specify the stock name, right? The variable that holds the stock names and the variable that holds the event dates. So it is going to give us again all those values, but the only difference would be that they would not be for this event date, but each stock would have its own event date. Okay, we can also specify wildcards, like if our index list was starting from MKT till HML. So in the order of these variables, or we can write if we want to take all the variables, then we can use the wildcard. Okay, there are certain limitations with this estudy command, and one of the limitation is that if let me demonstrate this to you. If we have multiple dates, event dates for a same stock. So for Apple we have 2 event dates. So let's say it had stock split multiple times in 2001. Once it was in 2012 and the second time it was in 2013. So if we are going to run the command, let's just say we execute our basic command, not the basic one, this one, and use mkt. So it is going to take stock name and event date and going to execute it. So it is going to okay, so instead of AAPL I mistakenly wrote APPL, and that's what it is not giving us an error. Okay, so now we have 2 events for the same stock. So AAPL have 2 events, and that's quite common to have 2 different events for a single stock, right? But it would give us an error which says that name list, which is the stock name, right? Name list means that, let me show it to you from the help file. So what it is referring to is that this event date we are going to take name list. So this name list may include only unique values, right? So it cannot repeat Apple 2 times or any other stock 2 times. So this is one of the major limitations, including other small limitations as well. This is one of the major limitations of this estudy command. So but normally we do have to include multiple events of a same firm. So thanks for watching this video, and in next video we are going to use event study 2.